Hey there, everybody. Jason here. I'm going to double check that we are live and ready to go on Facebook. I know the one time I don't check is the one time it won't work, but it looks like we are there and good to go. So, hey there. I'm Jason Logston, and this is Makin Bacon. We're all about helping you serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. Today's episode is brought to you by the Expert Video Roundup. If you worry you're not getting the most out of your brand partnerships, and if you're tired of signing one-off deals and feeling like you aren't making as much as you could, then let our experts show you the way with the next Expert Video Roundup. It's all about working with brands. It's an event I'm co-hosting with Megan Porta from Eat Blog Talk, and we've brought together experts from both sides of the aisle, including Jenny Melrose, Sandy Markle, Sally Eckes, Christina Peters, Yvette Marquez Sharpnack, Doug Piper, and Tamika Bazil. The event will be on March 6th. It's free to view live. You can sign up for the Expert Video Roundup at evrshow.com/brands. Should be a really good time, and hopefully there'll be a lot of information exchange helping you move forward. And remember, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guest questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live or search for Makin Bacon on your favorite podcast platform. Now, on to the show. As bloggers, we are often highly focused on our blog. We're trying to drive traffic and grow our audience, but there's many channels out there that you can use to get in front of audiences that do not rely on a blog at all. And today's guest is the perfect person to help us explore them. He's a podcast host, a YouTube creator, a cookbook author, and a Sous Vide superfan. Can't wait to learn from today's guest, Darrin Wilson, owner of the Fire and Water cooking brand. Darrin, welcome to Makin Bacon.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate being here.
I appreciate the shirt. I'm rocking Darrin's Fire Water cooking brand shirt. So wanted to match, make sure that we look good together.
I appreciate that.
Darrin and I go back several years now. He's been on my other podcast, the Exploring Sous Vide show, a few times. He's spoken at our virtual conference. He's highly active in our sous vide community. And then I've also been on his show multiple times and love chatting with him. I'm looking forward to today because normally we're just talking about like the most recent slab of meat we've cooked. So it'll be fun to dive into the business aspects that both of us kind of do, which should be really fun. And before we get started, though, I always like to ask, what is it like around your dinner table on a typical day?
Well, usually we're kind of busy. My wife works a weird shift, so she's usually working in her office. So she eats at her desk, and then usually it's my son and my daughter and me sitting around the dinner table, and we yell at her while she's in her office working. So it's kind of a weird setup. You know, she works like a 10 to 8 to 9 shift. From home, so but lets her be at home, but we're not really sitting at the same table when we're eating, but we can still converse and all that. So but it's usually pretty good. I experiment a lot with sous vide and barbecue and stuff, so usually all my test stuff gets they get subjected to that whether they like it or not. So so sometimes it's a winner, sometimes it's not, and they are not shy about telling me if they like it or not. So
we're often on a very random dinner schedule as well. You know, my wife works at CBS Sports and she's on weird hours, and not having kids, we eat dinner when she's ready. So a lot of times I'll be talking with Mike Lashardi, who's the co-founder of the ISVA with me that Darrin knows. And he'll be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, just finishing up dinner. And he's like, "It's 9:30. I'm like, "Yeah, that's there's a late shift for Jody. So we're eating dinner at 9:30. That's the way it works around here."
Yeah, so it's we usually eat it around the same time, but it's just that not all of us are around the table at the same time. So it's kind of fun. But hey, at least we're all in the same house.
Yeah, that's the important part these days. Everyone's around and being safe. So, like a lot of bloggers and content creators, what you do really started out as kind of a hobby for you. You were active in the sous vide groups, the grilling groups on Facebook, and then you made the fateful decision to start your own Facebook group. Can you talk a little bit about what prompted you to start your own group and the evolution of that?
Yeah, a lot of the inspiration, and you've actually helped me out more than you know, and you've helped me out with my book and some other stuff. So people, we're just not, occasional friends, or you've actually helped me out a lot. And we've talked, in depth a lot of times about a lot of this stuff, and you kind of inspired me. Your Sous Vide group on Facebook is probably one of the most positive, one of the biggest ones out there. I was, when I first started getting involved in it, I was in some of the barbecue groups and all that, and I started getting into sous vide. I found out really quick that it's just like any of the barbecue groups. There's a lot of different personalities in these groups, and there's some good ones and there's some bad ones, and that's including the people that run the groups. So
Yeah.
when you got people that run the groups that are not the nicest people in the world, they tend to you kind of find out who you gel with, and your group has always been really supportive, and you've been supportive, and your books have been supportive, and your website, it's got a lot of knowledge to it. So I was kind of attracted to you. And when I started really getting into it, I noticed that, yours deals with sous vide overall, and there really wasn't a whole lot out there dealing with mixing sous vide with barbecue. Because when I first started experimenting with sous vide, that's what really drew me to it, because barbecue is usually low and slow cooking out on a smoker. Well, sous vide is low and slow cooking, but in a water bath, and there's a lot of things that both of those cooking methods can complement each other on. They can't really replace either one themselves, but if you combine the two cooking methods, they can make something totally different, something totally you can't make any other way. And that's what really excited me about it. So that's what made me want to start, the Facebook group. And I kind of, looked at your group and used that as kind of my baseline. And this is how I want to be. I want to be inclusive. I don't want to run people off. I don't want to tell people they have to do it my way or the highway. And I don't want people that are in the group doing that either. So that's kind of how I set mine up. And it kind of grew. Like the first month or first week, I think I had 1,000 members join, right away. So
that's huge for a Facebook group coming right out of the gate. That's great.
Yeah, now it's almost it's over 14,000 now, which it's almost 3 years in the making. But when I started doing that, I got that going and started going. I said, you know what? There's not a whole lot of people out there on YouTube doing videos about sous vide and barbecue. There was a couple. I saw a couple of my barbecue guys that I used to follow had a couple, single one-offs here that mixed it and said, yeah, this is kind of cool, but they didn't really get deep into sous vide and really understand the process. They just kind of were trying trial and error trying it. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'll start a YouTube channel doing the same kind of thing. I kind of hopefully they'll bounce off each other. The Facebook group and the YouTube channel can kind of help each other grow.
And you had no background really in professional cooking or doing video work or any of that, right?
No, I had cooked in restaurants and stuff as when I was younger, and I've always cooked. I've always been interested in cooking, and I've always cooked for family and get-togethers and all that. And I've studied a lot of different cooking methods, and always watching the Food Network shows and all that kind of stuff. So I've always been involved in cooking and always cooked, and always, I did do it professionally a while ago, but nothing recently. I don't do that for a living, but
yeah.
I just kind of got excited about it, and I just started putting my nose to the grindstone and learn. Like with YouTube, I've never shot videos before and was never really a public speaker or anything like that, and never felt comfortable doing it until you start doing it. So it's the same thing with the podcast. I just, about a year after I started doing YouTube, I'm like, you know what? There's not a podcast that deals, even with just sous vide on its own. A lot of them are just all general cooking, overall cooking stuff. And then there's a lot of barbecue ones out there. So I said, well, I might as well try and see what, will happen if I start a podcast about sous vide and barbecue. So, and that's just kind of how it, everything kind of folds with me. It's like, once I conquer one thing, I'll go, well, what else can I do? Or where else is there an audience for this that maybe won't go from one platform to another? Because that's one thing I did learn with Facebook and YouTube, especially. There are people that will not go on Facebook that are on YouTube, and there's people on YouTube that won't go to Facebook. So there's a different audience in different platforms. Instagram's the same way. There's people on Instagram that don't go to Facebook and don't go to YouTube. So there's audiences on different platforms, and sometimes, a lot of times they don't interact with each other or interact with the different platforms. So
yeah, a lot of bloggers seem to get worried about well, I already put this out on Facebook, so I don't want to put it out again on Instagram or on, YouTube or Pinterest. And it's like, the amount of people that follow you on more than one platform is really small. And the amount that follows you on all of them, like they're probably your super fans. Like they don't care that
Right.
you're putting out the same content because they're interested in everything you're putting out. But the majority of people, you're lucky if they're following you on one, much less, two, that you shouldn't stress out about it. Get it out to the platforms where they are and where they're interested in, consuming content from you. Because a lot of people, like you said, there's YouTube people, there's podcast people, there's Facebook people, and they don't always overlap.
Well, and a good example of that is, in my Facebook group, I've got, over 14,000 subscribers. My YouTube channel, I just got over 6,000 subscribers to that. And Instagram, I don't even have 1,000 followers. So, but, there's people that are on, Instagram that probably don't follow me on YouTube or Facebook, and vice versa, so there's YouTube followers that don't go to Facebook. There's Facebook followers that don't go to YouTube. So you got to be able to offer it to everybody that, wherever they want to be, I guess, pretty much. Not that you have to be on every single platform that's out there, but, you just got to realize that, like you said, just because you release it on Facebook, you should release it on every platform you're on, because you got people that, maybe they don't like to watch videos on Facebook. They'd rather watch a video on YouTube, but they'll go to Facebook for a Facebook group. They might use Facebook just for certain things and YouTube for other things. So
Richard Jensen, who, Darrin, I'm sure highly active in the ISVA community, he was asking, do you feel if there's a need to create content differently for Instagram versus Facebook?
Yeah, because it's a different format. I mean, I started out, and I experiment still with the different platforms. Instagram for me is still just posting up a picture. And fortunately, when you do post a picture on Instagram, you can have it download to your Facebook page, which I do that a lot. I occasionally will post a video up on Instagram. Those do okay. Right now, I'm kind of doing most of my videos on YouTube because it's monetized. If I do a video on Instagram, it doesn't get me anything but people watching it. So it doesn't, turn into cash. It just sits there and people watch it, and it's great. But so I'm at the point now where I've got so much going on, not that I'm greedy or anything. It's just that if I'm doing something and putting a lot of effort into it, I got to make something back from it. And, so I'm not going to do a different video for Facebook and a different video for YouTube and a different one for Instagram, or a different format. Cause a lot of times you got to reformat it, and it can't be as big, or you got to shoot it, this way instead of that way. And so it's got to make sense to me to be able to do it, because I'm spreading myself really thin. So if I can't, monetize it to some extent, then it doesn't make sense for me to do it. I'm still building, my Instagram is more for people that are just on there wanting to follow me, and then hopefully I can move them to Facebook or YouTube or some other place where I can actually, get them more active in it.
That's one of the suggestions that I have a lot for people is figure out like what you want to dominate, for lack of a better word. Like, what do you want to be really successful in and be known for? And if that's not Instagram, then who cares about doing a separate Instagram specific thing? That it's, if you want to be great at Instagram, then yeah, you should develop content specifically for that. But the value of having an Instagram account that has regular content going into it that's not perfect is immensely more valuable than not having an Instagram account at all. Like, you're still reaching new people. You're not maximizing your reach there, but if you're in like Darrin's case, where you're focused on your book, you're focused on your podcast, you're focused on your YouTube channel, then you don't care if you're maximizing Instagram. Get some stuff out there with the least amount of effort possible, and then focus your energies on the things that are really moving your business and your brand forward.
You definitely want to have a presence in the major social media outlets. And, it's always good to try to push them into the one that you're most active on. I see people all the time that, and I started out this way, on YouTube, focus 100% on YouTube. Well, what happens if YouTube decides they don't want your type of video anymore, or they demonetize you for something, or, something happened? I mean, you just never know. Something could happen. They change their payouts where all of a sudden they're only going to pay you, 5% instead of 10% or whatever it may be, something like that. I don't want to lock myself into one platform. And if something happens with that platform, then you're out of luck. You don't have any options, So I try to do a little bit. I concentrate on Facebook a lot more because I have the page. Then I have a couple different groups. I built a vacuum sealer group that seems to be growing. I mean, unfortunately, some of the times you stumble into things, and I kind of started out doing the sous vide and barbecue, but I kind of stumbled into the vacuum sealer. People are a lot more interested in vacuum sealer stuff than really. I mean, because they're getting cheaper on the chamber side, and there's so many more options out there than just food saver. There's a lot of people that are interested in vacuum sealers, and I get a lot of questions and stuff like that on that. So, I kind of started another group about just vacuum sealers, and I got another one, just a barbecue one. So I got more stuff going on Facebook, but I still got a presence on YouTube. That generates some income for me, which helps me buy some of this stuff to test out and all that. I mean, it's all the money I generate from this little side hustle gets put back into it. Yep. It's like some of the stuff they'll send me, so I'll get some free stuff from companies, but a lot of the stuff I buy on my own just because I'm interested in it and I want people to see it. I mean, like, just for instance, the Breville Polyscience Hydro Pro Plus. I talked to David on that, had him on my podcast. I'm really interested in it, and I decided to go ahead and spend the $600 out of my own pocket to get one and test it out. And I'm editing a video right now to put up on YouTube, going over it, unboxing and all that. So
nice. Very good machine. I'm excited. Once we got some a few of the QA out of the troubleshooting out of the box, because it's a new machine. It's working very smoothly. I highly recommend if you're interested in a professional quality sous vide machine. It's the new Hydro Pro Plus is pretty amazing. When you start these groups on Facebook, how do you go about trying to grow them? Is there anything specific you do to try to increase kind of awareness of them?
Usually I'll market it from my Facebook page now has gotten pretty good sized. So I'll hit up, the other groups I may have open, like I've got a barbecue group. I'll just put it out there. Hey, I'm in this. Some of the other groups that I'm in will allow you to post up groups in there, if you do it the right way. And, some of them don't. So that's another thing you got to be careful about in Facebook, especially. Some people will be, no, you can't say anything about any other groups. Some of them are like, yeah, I don't care if it's food related or whatever, everybody, is here to have fun. But, so I just try to put it out there in all my different, wherever I am, I'll just promote it, hey, vacuum sealer. If you're interested in vacuum sealers, I got another group over here about vacuum sealers, so.
And I would say most of the groups that you are in, you're also active in, and you're helping and you're answering questions, and you're not just jumping into groups and saying, hey, I got another group, check it out. Like, you're known in a lot of the groups you post about, which is important.
Well, and that's another thing too, because I said, when you get involved in the Facebook groups, they're all their own beast. And they're all run by different individuals who have different ideas on what a Facebook group can be or should be. Some of them, they'll let me post my YouTube videos in there. Some of them don't, and it's like, if it's to me, if it's my group, the way I run my group is, if it's related to what my group is related to, I'll let you post it, but just don't post a YouTube video every day, just post one a week. And if it's, about sous vide or barbecue, and that's fine. I don't have a problem because it's group related. So somebody might want to learn how to make what you're making. And that to me is content that's going to interest the group members. But there's people that will like, no, you have to only post your picture that you made. You have to put the recipe and the exact time and temp that you used, or you can't post in this group. It's like, I don't understand why you got to be so difficult. But I mean, they're allowed to do the things they want to do. And that's the good thing about it. But to me, it's, sometimes I have a different idea on what a group should be. And I haven't had too many problems. Every once in a while, just like with anything, you'll get somebody come in there and cause problems, and you have to remove them. I mean, I know you've had your group for a long time and you go through this stuff, but As the most part, once you put the rules out there, you let people know how it's going to be, you make people feel comfortable, and you tell them up front, hey, this is the way it is, then they're usually fine with it. And if they're not, then they usually won't last long. Not to be mean about it, but I mean, there's people that will come up and they'll start, they join Facebook groups, or they go on YouTube just to make negative, nasty comments to people. So.
Yeah, I was surprised that a lot of people worry so much about moderation on Facebook groups. And it is like, my group's up to 44,000 people now. And I have, me and my mom basically moderated, and I go on maybe once a day just to check. And, I have people like you and like Mike that, flag posts, report stuff and help out, but it's a community effort helping out. It's not just having a few moderators kind of with a gavel being in control of everything. So it's surprising that when you do kind of set those expectations for what is proper behavior in the community and then enforce them pretty rigidly, then it's right. People tend to self-police themselves. And it's just, we are not a group that that's okay in. And that could be anything from telling people their food looks like garbage to, like in my group, if you ask someone, why would you sous vide that? You're removed from the group. That's very clear that the group is called Exploring Sous Vide. It's not sous vide is the only way to cook anything that we're posting in here. It's just right. It's having fun. And if someone, especially new, comes in and says oh, I did this sous vide, and their first comment they get back is, that looks like garbage, or why would you even do that? They're not going to come back to your group anymore. And so eliminating people and making it clear that those people aren't welcome is been critical, at least for my moderation. And I think that you structure a lot of your moderation around the same thing.
Yeah. And every once in a while, if something dust up happens where you got some guy, and I had this happen just last week. I had some guy who'd been a member for a long time, and he posted up something about a certain piece of equipment, and he did a test on it. And I said, yeah, I've had something like that before, and I wasn't really thrilled with it. He got mad at me and said, because now you run this group and everybody thinks it's a piece of crap and blah, blah. I'm like, dude, I just told you my opinion on this thing. I didn't say it was garbage. I just said, I don't particularly like this. And it was it was the Instapot, thing, that's a multi-cooker. And I just don't like multi-cookers. They don't usually do one thing really well. They do a lot of things very, not very good. And I got all mad that he started, trashing, all kinds. And it's like, dude, you've been a member here for a long time. And I took him offline. I said, look, if you want to be this way, I can't keep you in the group. You can't publicly try to, cause problems and call me names in my own group. It just doesn't work that way. It's just, and people, like I said, people get crazy. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody, especially since I deal with barbecue and sous vide, I'll get people that come in, the barbecue guys, everything's got to be cooked in a, offset cooker. For this, you got to sit there and drink a beer and watch it. It's like, and so they'll come in, and that's the first couple things they do. That's, no, you can't cook brisket. That's, so I give them a warning. Okay, this is your first warning. This is a sous vide and barbecue group. You can't come in here and tell people that they shouldn't, sous vide stuff just like you. And if they go to screw you, and some of them they'll leave right away, or sometimes they'll sit back a while and they'll come out again, and you just, all right, you're gone. So, and it's really good of the whole group. There's none of the Facebook groups, individual. I don't want to be mean, but individual people in the group don't matter as much as the whole group. What the group's there to do, I created the group for a certain purpose. I put the rules down, and this is, if you don't want to follow them, then there's other groups out there, and that's fine. You can go. If you want to stay, this is what you got to abide by. And, it's go create your own group. That's what I did. I didn't find a group that fit my stuff. So I created a new group, and, I'm not going to lose any sleep over somebody pitching a fit because they're not in the group anymore.
It's always fun having a sous vide guest on, because the sous vide community comes out in the comments. It's much more riled up than the majority of the Makin Bacon podcast. We got Mike Lashardy, who's my co-founder with the ISVA, says, yeah, the guy who runs Exploring Sous Vide is a big jerk, which would be me. I appreciate that, Mike, for your support. And Mark Webb, the aroma science guy coming to us from Australia, says, we don't have too much trouble in your group. And when we do, some of us will jump on you pretty quick. And they yell at me to let me know know someone's misbehaving, which is very, very true. It's nice when communities overlap, and fostering that sense of community and kind of letting people know how to behave is great. And we know people that get riled up about stuff, but they don't in our groups because they know to behave. They might send us a Facebook message and be like, hey,
Right.
and go off on something, but they know not to post it publicly, which is half the battle, I think, setting those expectations.
Like me and you both have the same attitude. I understand people get caught up in stuff and, hey, but, everybody's allowed to have a bad day or a bad, they get their, feelings hurt or what have you. And that's fine, but don't continue and learn when to stop typing and walk away from your keyboard and then come back. Because what I try to get, especially in my groups and even with YouTube and everything I do, I try to make it so people can learn stuff and better themselves and learn what works, what doesn't work. Even when I do just reviews of products, I try to go into it as deep as I look at it the way I look at things. Is this going to be something that here is what I like about this? Somebody else may be looking at something totally different on what they like about a certain product, but here's what I like about it. And here's how I think. And a lot of people like my reviews. That's what, like I said, with the vacuum sealer stuff, people tend to glom onto my stuff because a lot of people have the same concerns or they're looking for the same type of, products that I am. And, so I show it to them and just tell them how I feel. And I get a lot of good positive feedback about that stuff. So
I feel like that's one of the lines that as bloggers we need to walk is if you just try to please everyone, you're not going to please anyone pretty much. But getting your opinion out there doesn't mean it's the only opinion, that it's the right opinion. And I think for a lot of bloggers, we want to foster that sense of community and coming out when someone hears me say something or they hear you say something, they know that's our opinion. And if they disagree with that opinion and they do it in a pleasant manner, that's completely fine. And we're up for having discussions. And it's a fun topic. Let's talk about what temperature is best for ribs. Let's talk about the best way to put together a chicken breast. Like that's fun discussions, but you still need to have here's my opinion. Here's my point of view. Here's my take on it. Otherwise, there's no reason for people to listen to you in the first place. And then you can have fun talking about the more nuanced kind of the nuances of it.
Yeah. And it's just like, with you and me and being in sous vide and barbecue and knowing, the whole smoke first or smoke after. I mean, it's personal preference. I prefer to smoke after. There's people that like to smoke first, but I'll tell you why I like to smoke after. Doesn't mean if you do it the other way, you're wrong. If it's your personal preference, it's the same way with products. I may like a certain brand of, sous vide circulator. You may like a different brand, but I'm going to tell you why I like that brand. Not just because it's a brand. Anything that they do. It's like some people are like that. It's the whole Ford versus Chevy mentality. No matter what Chevy makes, I'm going to be, like it, even if it looks like the Aztec. You remember the Pontiac Aztec? It was, but I can't. I've never been a brand type person. I do like certain brands if they, makes quality products, but I haven't never been, I'm just going to glom onto a brand just because it's that. And I'm not going to come off of that. So if I like something, there's specific reasons why I like it, and that's what attracts me to that.
Mark Webb says about the taking a breath, take your hands off the keyboard and re-engage the brain before returning.
Exactly.
I like that. And Richard had a follow-up question to when we were chatting about Instagram. He said, for Instagram, it seems like the hashtag lists are really long on some posts. How do you find appropriate tags? And do you ever create your own tags, and why?
Usually if it's something where I'm focusing on a certain product or a brand, I will put the hashtag in there. Like if I'm featuring, let's just say the Hydro Pro Plus, I'm doing a picture of it because I'm doing a comparison. So I'll put a hashtag in there so people can, go find out what I'm talking about. Like the sous vide shot, they usually have a purpose. And I agree. I see some Instagram posts where there's just a ton of hashtags and there's no way you're going to sit there and look at all the hashtags on it. But what happens is if you, if somebody is searching for that particular product, or if they hashtag sous vide shot, it'll pull up all these different posts that have it in there. So it has a purpose. If somebody is looking for a Hydro Pro Plus, and it's got a hashtag into my Instagram post, they're put it in Google, it will hit on that, so it'll pop up in the search. So there's a reason that they have them in there. I do agree, some people use way too many of them sometimes. So I use them sparingly and usually just for specific purposes. So
I think there's 3 general types of hashtags. One is, or probably 2 types. One is like brand hashtags, and that's the example that Darrin used and Richard uses is the hashtag sous vide shot. That's what the ISVA uses. If you tag a post with sous vide shot, our social media guru is going to see that and might highlight it on our account. And I know Anova Food Nerd does that for Anova. There's a lot of other brands that do that with hashtags. And then there's other ones which are kind of like generic descriptive hashtags, and that'd be like sous vide beef. Like it's describing what the dish is. And those users, like Darrin's saying, will search. So you can click on that and see what comes up. And you can also follow those hashtags. If you like a specific one, you could follow, hashtag sous vide infusions, and it would actually show up in your feed now. So people try to hit those. The best advice I've heard is you want to find ones that have turnover and people are following, but you don't want it to be, a ton of, like if there's 100,000 posts a day in a certain hashtag, tagging your post with that probably isn't doing anything because you're going to go through that feed so quickly. You want a feed that people are following, but you're going to stick at the top for a long enough time.
Yeah, you don't want to do just a hashtag sous vide because, there's so many things in that them being able to see what you posted is, few and far between. Now, like I said, I'll do it like when I do a post about like the Hydro Pro Plus or the Anova Precision Oven, because there's a lot of people looking for that, and there's not a whole lot of content on that still right now. So, you want something that's relevant, something that, like I said, I try not to use, 300 different hashtags, just enough to, so people can, if they're looking for that particular thing, that it might show up in their feed. So,
and like we were talking about earlier, if you're just posting casually on Instagram, even as far as your business strategy, then hitting those main hashtags is going to be probably the way to go. And if you're trying to dominate, Instagram, then you should probably take a course on the proper way to maximize your hashtags, because then that extra 10% or 20% boost is going to matter to you. But if it's not part of your overall like domination strategy, then it's probably not a big deal.
Now, I know people, that, are influencers full time, and they actually have people, working for, there goes Jody.
Emmy Award winner Jody Logston. This is now an Emmy Award winning podcast episode to steal Darrin's joke from Facebook earlier.
but so, they have people that are actually work for them that actually do all that stuff for them. So like somebody like me and you, we do all this stuff ourselves. So I'm not going to sit there and spend a whole day on Instagram figuring out how to, hashtag and fine tune Instagram. I do a little bit in each one, now once I start getting bigger, maybe I'll hire somebody to start, focusing more in on some more of this stuff where, I'm trying to, write a book, do a video, post up, monitor a Facebook group, there's a lot of different things that are going on. I don't really have time to do it all and get, deep into everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I want to cover one of the things Richard asked here. He says, how important is website versus blog versus Facebook, YouTube, and where do you recommend people starting? This is something that I've been talking a lot about lately with people for whatever reason. It's come up a whole lot. What I recommend to a lot of people that are just getting started is try a few different things and see what really jumps out to you and what you enjoy doing. Like, I think Darrin will probably agree with this, that if you love doing podcasts, then that's probably where you should start. If you love doing video work, then that's where you should start. Like if you like writing or photography, there's some things that are going to resonate more with you, and there's others that aren't. There are successful bloggers and entrepreneurs that only have a YouTube channel, that only do a podcast, that only have a blog, that are only on Instagram. You can succeed in any of these channels, but Darrin will be the first to tell you that there is a limited amount of time you have to do this stuff. And a lot of it takes a lot of hard work. So you better be doing something that you enjoy and is not draining to you. In a best case, it gives you energy working on these type of things. Because if it's a struggle to do one of these, then you're not going to be successful at it. So focus on things that you like doing, and once you've experimented with a few, you can see which ones really jump out to you, and you can dive into those kind of in the long term.
You want it to be fun for you, and you want it to be like Jason said, you don't want it to be draining. You don't want to have to dread it, and you don't want to spread yourself too thin, and God forbid, don't make yourself try to be a perfectionist, because especially when you start. Some of my first YouTube videos were horrible. I go back and look at them. I leave them up there just so for me to go back and look at and go, look where I started. But other people do too. If you look at some of the more successful YouTubers, like Malcolm Reed, it's a big barbecue guy. He started out like, I think 10, 12 years ago on YouTube, just walking around with a handheld video camera at barbecue competitions, and now his videos are like, pure production TV quality videos on cooking and stuff. So it's really fun to go back and watch some of these guys that have been on YouTube for a while and look at their earlier videos and see how they progressed. I mean, Guga from, Sous Vide everything, he's the same way. You look at some of his earlier videos, they're totally different than what he does now. But you can, if you watch some of his older stuff, you can see the progression, and he has fun doing it. And he's over time tweaked it here and there. And that's what you got to do. As long as you're having fun, you're not spreading yourself too thin, and just know that you're going to continue to change and tweak and make it better as you go along. You don't need to be perfect right out the bat. You can start off, humming and hawing and going, I don't know how to edit and all this. I mean, everybody's going to do that, but you'll get better as you go, and people will appreciate that. They don't, especially on YouTube, they don't expect you to come out being, like they're watching a full, production like Jody does, on TV, right? So, I mean, they know it's some dude sitting in his, house, shooting a video and editing it on his home computer and putting it up there for everybody to see. So,
and also a thing to keep in mind is that when you put out your first blog post, when you put out your first YouTube video or a podcast, how many people watched your first video when it first came out, Darrin?
Not many.
Yeah, right. Like 2 or 3 or 5. Like no one ever sees your first thing that you put out there. So there shouldn't be any stress. Like get it out there. No one's going to see it anyway. And then continue working and building and growing your following over time. And then by the time you have a big opportunity or something really hits with your audience, then you're going to know what you're doing and you look good. Like I get people commenting on me that I'm a natural host and that I'm a natural speaker and I'm natural in videos. And it's like, sure, I took speaking classes and I've now been doing video work and public speaking for 5 years. And I've put a lot of time and energy and hours and hours and hours into getting better at it. So now I look like I know what I'm doing, but I did not 5 years ago. And everything in blogging, everything in cooking is a skill. Some people might start off slightly above others, but without putting in time and energy and going through the process again and again and again, you're not going to be good at any of this. So start working. Don't be scared. And I love that what Darrin said about you don't have to be a perfectionist. Getting it out there is, good and done is better than perfect and sitting on your hard drive because you're afraid to release it.
Yeah. And I'm surprised, I'll get people that make comments on some of my earlier videos. I'll get a comment from a video I did 3 years ago, and it's like, some nasty comment. And I'm like, dude, did you see how old this video is? I mean, literally, it's like one of my first videos I ever did. And then, but I'll get people, here's a good thing too. Once you start doing it on a regular basis, you get more comfortable. And I always tell people to do what you like, do the videos you want to do. Don't try to chase some, hip thing or something that's in. Do the things that are interesting to you, because you're going to put more heart into it. When you speak about it, people are going to know you really care about it. And then some of the videos that I do that take off, that get all the views and stuff, are like, you scratch your head and go, well, that was just something I did because I was kind of curious about it. Now, everybody else is watching this thing and it's like, I can't believe it. That's kind of what happened with the vacuum sealers. I did a review of a vacuum sealer and it was like, I got like 4,000 views on it, like in 2 weeks. I was like, what the heck, here I got a good one. I thought I did a brisket, medium rare sous vide brisket barbecue. I thought that was going to get it, and that's got like 200 views. And this the review of a crappy, vacuum sealer that cost like $50. I got 4,000 views on it in a week. So you just never know what people are gonna glom onto, and but do what you like and what makes you tick and your passion, and then other people that have that same passion are going to kind of gravitate to it as well.
Yeah, you'll start bringing in that audience, and that audience will start to expect the type of content you put out, and they enjoy the type of content you put out, and it's this kind of virtuous cycle of you continue to attract more people while you're doing what you like. Where if you do something you don't like, you're going to attract people, because there's a lot of ways to be successful, but you're attracting people that want you to do stuff that you don't like, that you don't enjoy doing, and it will burn you out very, very quickly. Mike wanted to know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not one like I'm not a sexy model or a good looking girl that's going to post on YouTube or on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. I'm not going to be going on TikTok or anything like that. So I do what I like. I do what motivates me, and then hopefully there's other people out there that will gravitate toward it in that. So I'm not, and that's why I don't concentrate just on YouTube, because that's not my passion is not to be the biggest YouTube cook guy out there. It's not. It's just another way for me to share with other people out there. I'm not going to, just expect that, I'm not one sitting there going, how can I, get 1 million subscribers on YouTube? I don't do that. If I did, I probably would get more if I concentrated more, but that's not what I focus on. So,
yeah, I also feel like it's a lot more important for a lot of us to get the right listeners and viewers than it is a lot of listeners or viewers.
A lot, yeah.
One that connects with you is worth 200 people that just click over because it's a viral video and never come back to you. It's getting that community and that tribe around you is so important to continuing to move forward any endeavor you have.
Right. And that's where I go back to, don't chase the current events or something on what you're doing. Do what you're passionate about. I'm not going to all of a sudden do a video on politics, or whatever else is in the news today because everybody else is doing it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to concentrate on what I want to do, and hopefully everybody that follows me is the same way.
Michael Shardy wanted to know what part of building your brand has been most outside of your comfort zone, and how have you gotten through that?
Pretty much all of it.
Nice.
Well, the easy part was the Facebook group was probably the easiest thing to start because you're not having to interact with people, face to face. You're not shooting video. The hardest part to me is being on video. That's what started out doing the YouTube videos or things like that, where even like with Facebook Live, I have to have somebody to bounce things off of. I'm not one to I don't like to just do a live stream with me just talking, or even with my podcast. I do them occasionally because I don't happen to have a guest that week, but I like to put out content at least every week. So I'll do some where I'm just talking, but that's not my favorite thing to do. That's where I'm most uncomfortable, because I don't like just reading from a script or anything. I like interacting with other people and bouncing things off of guests. That's where I think, people always comment on my podcast is that, you really know how to talk to people and ask the right questions and get the things out of them that we're all interested in. I can't do that if I'm just talking to my camera or talking to myself. You can't really bounce anything off anybody else. You're just sitting there. Okay, well, let's talk about, what temperature your water should be when you put it in the, and it's just doesn't excite me and it's, so.
Yeah,
that's probably the worst part, is trying to do stuff without interacting with other people.
It is hard not getting feedback. I recently did a Chibo hands-on cooking class. Richard Jensen was in it, Mike was in it, and it was like an hour of me talking to the camera and explaining to the camera how to do something. And at the end of it, I texted Mike right away and was like, was that any good? I had no idea how it went, where at least here I would know if it's going, semi decently, because either you look happy or you look like, what is wrong with this person interviewing me on the podcast? It comes through in the comments. I love that interaction, getting feedback, where some people are completely fine. They're like, I have my plan. I know what I need to say, and I know that it's going to be good. So they don't care about the interaction. And I think finding those things, kind of, what do you need to continue doing stuff, is a good kind of find out what your crutches are. And, it's good to try stuff without them. But sometimes we don't do something because it's scary, and other times we don't do something because we don't like it. And until you do it once or twice, you can't know which it is. But once you figure out that it is just something you don't like, there's nothing wrong with trying to avoid it, I think.
Well, and then go back to, when I first started doing the videos for YouTube, for some reason I had it stuck in my head that I couldn't edit things, that everything was like, had to be done. Whatever video I took was it. I just put it up there. And so I would, man, how am I I don't know what to say. And did that come out right? Or the camera was pointed a different way. I found it hard to just scrap everything and start over again. So, but it takes learning and you get used to it. But that was probably my first thing, was I just was never used to doing videos. But once you start doing them, like I said, it takes probably a good, 10 or 12, you start developing a rhythm and figuring it out and going, okay, I can do this. It's not that hard. And you can always go back and reshoot. You can do voiceovers. There's a lot of different ways you can fix things that maybe didn't come out right when you were videoing it and you thought they did. So you learn all that stuff as you go along. But
I'd love to talk a little bit about your podcast. A lot of food bloggers here listen to podcasts, but most of them aren't food podcasts. They're podcasts for business, or like this one is for bloggers. And yours is all about cooking, and it's for, cooks. It's not for business people. There's business people that listen, but it's all about food. Can you talk a little bit about the subjects that you cover and the type of guests that you have on?
I have a whole mixture of guests. I started out, when I first started doing it, I actually didn't know that if I could get guests on. I just said, well, I'm going to try, I'll see what I can do. And, so I shot some emails out to some people I wanted to have on. I started out with a couple of YouTubers that were, doing the similar things that I were, and that we had kind of talked on some other groups that we were in and stuff, and invited them on. And some of them were actually pretty large, had some pretty large followings, like Greg Mervich of Ballistic Barbecue. And he actually wrote his own Sous Vide barbecue book before I even thought about writing a book. And, he was on. And so I kind of said, hey, mind coming on? I want to start having some guests. And I was really surprised that how many people just said, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. Meathead Goldwyn from Amazing Ribs was like, yep, no problem. And I had a couple other people from on. And then, so I learned really quick that most people that you think are not going to say yes to come on will come on, because they're wanting to promote themselves, promote whatever they're doing. And they don't care that you only have, a couple hundred followers or, downloads a month. Any exposure they can get, they're going to go ahead and do it. And I've had several people on. I've had Meathead on a couple times on my podcast. And, my podcast is not the largest. It's still, 300 or 400 downloads a week when I do an episode, which I've learned to understand that that's still pretty big. Yeah. Most people don't understand that most podcasts don't get very many plays at all. And I don't use that really to that's more of a side project for me, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And it's more, I like to get people on there that I like to talk to and want to find out things. And, I get some companies on to talk about their products because I like their products, not because they offered to come on or that they're paying me. I mean, I make no money on the podcast at all. I mean, that's something you could hardly ever get monetized on a podcast unless you're Joe Rogan or somebody like that, where you've got millions and millions of downloads. But most podcasts aren't monetized at all. They cost you money. So, it's like a lot of things. It costs you more money than you're actually going to get out of it.
Yeah. The biggest benefit that I've had to having the two podcasts is expanding my network. That, like, if I reached out to a brand like Polyscience or Everidge and was like, hey, can you want to work together? They'd probably be like, know, like who are you? I don't want
Right.
to work with you. But if I reach out and say, hey, you want to come on my podcast? They're almost always saying yes. And like you said, I've done, I think, probably about 100 episodes now across the two podcasts. And I've had two guests ask what sort of traffic or downloads I get. Out of 100 guests, only two of them cared. And neither one of them cared that the answer was a small number. And
Right.
it's, if you start small and you can have a few episodes under your belt so you know what's going on, kind of get rid of the nerves, I think is a good way to do it. Interview a few of your friends first and start just working your way up the ladder a little bit. You can get bigger and bigger guests on. And a lot of these people are willing to sit down for an hour and get exposure. You're offering to give them something. It feels like you're asking, but in reality, you are offering exposure to a new audience. And it is surprising how many people are interested in hopping on podcasts and hanging out.
Well, and one of the things is I'm not as brave as you and want to do a live one. You know, there's, I know Barbecue Central podcast is one of the ones that's been out there for a long time. He's got a big following, Greg, and he does them live every Tuesday. You know, he does actually a 2 hour show. He's not even just an hour. He does 2 hours every Tuesday, and it's live. To me, I want to have the ability to edit it if I mess up, not just my guests, you know, but you know, and I want people to be able to feel that it's going to be gone over. So if they slip and say something they shouldn't say, or, you know, I've had people that, you know, forgot that it was a podcast and they curse or they say something that they're not supposed to say. And they go, oh man, you know, don't make that get out. And it's like, oh, no, don't worry, I'll edit it. But, you know, and me too, there's some guests on there that I've had on just to have on. And there's some that I've asked, like you said, that not many, but a couple that have like, well, what's your traffic? You know, blah, blah, blah. Those guys, I probably didn't want to have them on anyway, because they're going to be egotistical. The ones that usually say, yeah, I'll be on, believe it or not, you know, some of the ones that I thought would never want to come on, like Kenji, you know, Lopez Alt, I had him on. He was great. Didn't ask, you know, what the traffic was. Didn't ask for money or anything. I had one guy ask me for money. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't make any money doing this. Why would I pay you to come on? I just want to talk to you and, you know, expose your brand out to the people that, you know, listen to me. So, but most of the people, like I said, have just been, they've open. They're like, great. Yeah. What do you want to talk about? I try to give them a guideline of what we're going to talk about so that they're comfortable with that up front, you know, and I always tell them, if you want to bring up anything, you're more than welcome to, you know, it's going to be edited and all that. So just so you know that if there's anything that we say that you don't want published, I can edit it out, and just try to make them feel comfortable right off the bat, and try to be as professional when you send out an email as possible too. Tell them who you are, and you know, don't lie, but just, you know, hey, I've got a Facebook group of this many people. I've got, you know, YouTube channel. I've got this. I got this blog or whatever it is, and just speak yourself up. And as long as there's some kind of exposure for them and what they're doing, they're going to more than likely go, yeah, I'll set aside some time. So,
yeah, it's great getting guests on. And it's like you're saying, you have a lot of brands on, and a lot of bloggers are always asking, how do I get in front of brands? How do I contact people at brands? And having a podcast, even if you had no listeners to your entire podcast and you did a show once a week and you reached out to all the brands in your niche to have them come on your show, it'd be worth you doing a podcast just for growing the network of brands and starting to form some of these relationships with the companies that you want to get in front of, because now you have a contact there. You've had a conversation. They know you. They know what you're like. And that goes a long way towards securing deals or affiliate relationships or getting free product from them.
Exactly. And, you know, there's a few companies I reached out that, you know, didn't come on, and don't be picky on who you get. You don't have to have the CEO or the owner of the company on. You know, sometimes just get the marketing guy or the guy who's in charge of social media, you know, start out there, because that, you know, you get them on and you do a show with them and they like it, and they'll go to the CEO. Well, maybe next time the CEO can come on. You know, I've had that happen before, you know, where I talked to like a lower level person who's like in marketing or social media or whatever. And then, you know, hey, well, that was great, you know, and you like our product and we had a good conversation. Maybe I'll see if the CEO will come on, and, you know, next thing you know, 2 months later, I got the CEO on talking about how they started the business, or where the concept came from and all that, which I love that kind of stuff. And I know there's other people who do. I want to know where this idea came from to start this particular company, or where this particular type of unit, that you decided to make came from. That's what intrigues me. I like to know all that stuff.
I also think that there's this misconception that the bigger the guest, the bigger your audience will be. And there is some correlation. Like some of our biggest episodes were like James Briccione and like AJ Schaller, who have these big followings and are known in the industry. But in general, you're letting your audience know. And when I have James Briccione on Exploring Sous Vide, he's a gracious guest. He's great. I really love working with him, but he's also just like, oh, great. I'm going on like Jason's podcast. And then tomorrow I'm interviewing with the New York Times. And then I have to go film an episode of my Food Network show. Like,
right.
I am not a big deal to him in any way. And he posted on social media, but there are smaller people that I've had on that are just super excited to be on a podcast. They share with their followers, and the amount of people listening to those episodes that aren't in my audience at all to start with is huge, because they are sharing it and they're being active and they're getting the word out there. And so don't always just think like, if I get a big name, it's going to blow up my podcast. Some of those smaller names that are stoked to be on there can really move the needle.
Yeah, and that's one thing I try not to do. When I wanted to get like, Kenji on, it's not because I think he's going to get me a lot of podcasts. I want to talk to him. Yeah. I literally want to pick his brain. I want to know how he started. That's what I always do. And with my podcast, the first thing I do, if it's somebody I haven't never talked to before, how did you get involved in, like with Kenji, how did you get involved in cooking? Well, you would have thought he went to culinary school and everything. No, he went to be an architect and was working in restaurants when he was in college, and he just got the bug and decided to change his whole career. I mean, that kind of stuff interests the hell out of me, and this guy wrote the food lab, it's like, he didn't even go to culinary school. He just got involved like me, it's like he loves to cook and got the bug and did a lot of learning and on the job training and all that stuff. And then now he is where he is, but he didn't go to, some famous culinary school and all that. So,
Richard wants to know, do either of you have a list of equipment or software to do this type of podcast? I have an article that I will look up while Darrin tells you what he uses. So when I'm not staring at the camera here.
I did a lot of research, when I initially started. I used a couple different programs, and I think we all do that. We try out different things. But, the microphone is not very expensive. The one I got here, I think it was like 60 or 70 bucks. And I got it was just one of the podcast company I use is called Buzzsprout, and they'll do like a weekly newsletter, and they do a lot of trying to help podcasters out with what kind of equipment to look for and all that kind of stuff.
And is your microphone the Audio Technica? Is that what?
Yeah, it's the Audio Technica.
We use the same one. So.
The same one. So
like
but I mean,
you
can. It's like anything. You can go like with you can have the Hydro Pro Plus sous vide circulator, or you can have the $30 Anakukabuka that's off of Amazon. That it's not going to last long, but they're both going to do a job. Some will do better than others, but I like to go with something that's going to work really well and just not going to cost me a lot of money, especially because I know this, the podcast is not going to make me any money. So I try to make it to where maybe hopefully it can pay for itself. So there's just a lot of trial and error. I went through a couple different podcast platforms where I have my podcast on, and decided on the one that I like the best, that offers the right price, the right options, and the things for me. So there's a lot of different companies out there for that. And you just kind of, like with anything, you got to kind of understand what you're looking for, what you want to do, and then sometimes you have to change a couple things here and there, and then figure it out and go with what you like. So.
Yeah, better to dive in and get started than to never dive in because you're too busy analyzing all of the gear. If you want to get started, do it on your cell phone, and you can record a podcast episode on there, and you're good to go.
Yep, because there's some that are free. There's free services out there that you can actually do it on your cell phone and edit it and everything you want. And then now if you want to do something more, you can pay a little bit more, or you go to a different platform. But it's always easy. Just get started and, find the cheapest way possible. And then, like with anything, like even with doing my YouTube videos, started out not even having a microphone for it. And I learned really quick that audio is really important on YouTube, because people will just go, I can't listen to your video because I can't hear what you're saying. So then I try one microphone. Well, that doesn't work that great. And then I try a different one. Well, I finally find one that's not too expensive and it works pretty good. So I stick with that, so it's like anything, you trial and error is a lot of it. So
the last thing I wanted to talk about is you recently are a cookbook author. That's something that a lot of bloggers want to do, and you put it together. You got your book out there in time for the holidays. What was that process like?
It actually was a lot easier than I thought. I have looked at that, probably for the last 3 years. And I had talked to people that had written books and that I had on my podcast. And that was always the thing I'd ask them, you just recently wrote a book. How was that? Because I was always feeling them out. Is it as bad as people say? And I figured out there's two different ways, to go about it. And you helped me out a lot on the self-publishing. Now, my friend Greg Mervich of Ballistic Barbecue, he had a publishing house actually come to him because he had a big YouTube channel. They watched, he said that, they watched his sous vide and brisket videos, one of the ones I first watched that got me interested. And they went to him and said, hey, we would like you to do a book on sous vide and barbecue. And, and he's like, okay, I guess I can. I don't know what I'm doing, but they kind of helped him and walked him through it. And they sent him all this stuff and they edited it for him and everything. So they held his hand a lot, but they had a lot more say into it than he wanted as well. So they kind of focused, here's what you need to say. And then, then there's what you do a lot of is the self-publishing, where you have all the say and then you have all the control. But there's a lot more that you have to do yourself as well. So I kind of, every time I had somebody on that had written a book, I'd always ask them, about that. So I had the interest. And then when I started talking to you more and more about it, I felt more comfortable putting it together. And when I first started doing it, first started writing it and actually typing it up, it was kind of like vomiting out on the, and one of the reasons is because I had so many videos and stuff that I had already done. I already had the content there that I did for another platform that I said, well, I already did this recipe and I already had, did a video of this, so I can have that as one of my recipes. And I already had pictures of it. So I already had a lot of the content there from just doing over the years, doing the videos and doing the recipes and stuff. So it really wasn't that hard. I wasn't starting from scratch, so I wasn't building recipes that I hadn't done before. It was, I already did this one. I did this, 2 years ago, I did this particular recipe. So I'm just going to redo it, take the pictures that I took then and stick it in the book.
Yeah, that's a big benefit of doing the self-publishing, is that you can reuse so much of your existing content, where a traditional publisher will want 90 to 95% new content, which is all needs to be written from scratch. Self-publishing, find your top 30 or 40 blog posts and put them together, and you have a book with putting it together. And because you only spent about 3 months on the process, 4 months from.
Yeah. And most of that was just the time sitting down and be able to do it. And what made it really good for me or easy for me is all I really did is all the stuff I had learned in the last 4 years and the processes that I went through to learn it. That's all I did. I put it all down on paper, because I wrote this book about techniques and processes. And so it all came out of me for that 4 years, learning how to, I explained what barbecue was, explained what sous vide was, and explained how to put them together. So it all flowed out naturally. It wasn't a lot of stuff I had to sit and really think too hard about, or it wasn't, I don't know, say I wasn't, writing a new, I wasn't, creating something that I didn't already go through. So it was something, it's like writing my life story, I guess, so a lot of people, when they write their memoirs, it just kind of flows out of them. You start from here and you go to there. And that's kind of how it felt like. More I was, writing a memoir, and it was all in there. I just had to make it flow out on page. And it was a lot easier than I thought it was. Now, my next book is probably going to be totally different. So
yeah, now that you've exhausted your existing content, it definitely gets a little more and diving into some of the more research that you're doing. And I'll paste a link to your book on the show notes, but that's the Fire and Water Cooking. If they search for that on Amazon, correct?
It's on Amazon, but if you go to my website, fireandwatercooking.com, you can actually order a hard copy or a color paperback, and I'll sign it and personal message it for the same price. So it's actually
Nice.
will go to me directly. You can Amazon, it's on their Kindle. What is that called? The Unlimited, Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can download it for free as part of your Kindle Unlimited, or you can buy it on Kindle, or you can buy the black and white paperback copy on there. But if you want a personalized color copy, hard copy, or paperback, you can get from my website.
And if people are interested in self-publishing out there, you can always check out my self-publishing course, which is at makethatbacon.com/publish now. I'm always looking for more people to go through and get some more cookbooks out there. It's great seeing people go through the self-publishing process and some of the doors that can open for them.
And don't be afraid to do things. And that's kind of goes back to when I started the Facebook group to where I am now. Every time I started something, I never done it before. So I've never had a Facebook group before I started it. I never did a YouTube channel until I started it. I never did a podcast until I started it. And so don't hold yourself back being scared of what if nobody listens? What if nobody watches? What if nobody reads it? Don't even think about that. Just think about what you're passionate about. Put that in your video, put that in your, whatever you're creating, whether it's a blog or, your book. Just put the passion down. And there's going to be people that help you. Like Jason helped me out a lot on the book, so there's always going to be people that are going to help you and tell you, yes, no, maybe that's going to work. And then there's always going to be people that'll listen to you too. So no matter how fat and ugly you are.
Well, I think that's the perfect sentiment to end on. Put the passion down. People will help you, and you never know until you start doing some of these things.
And if you want more negative people, don't let the negative people, talk you out of it either, because there's a lot of negativity out there, and just ignore it and just move on. There's so much more positive stuff out there. If you focus on the negative people and the negative comments, I get them all the time on my YouTube channel, and I just get rid of them. They do it just for attention. They don't really care about what they're doing. They're doing it to get, so people go, ooh, look what this guy said. I don't even let them hang out. That's why I don't let them hang out in my Facebook groups. I don't let those comments stay on my YouTube channel, because nobody needs negative stuff. There's too much other negative stuff in the world. Keep it positive. Somebody says something negative, just ignore it and move on.
Yep. Yeah. Cut the negative out, focus on all those positives and what people enjoy about what you do. Exactly. And if people want more from Darrin and Fire and Water Cooking, you can head to fireandwatercooking.com or email Darrin at fireandwatercooking@gmail.com. Darrin, thank you so much for coming on and chatting business with me. It was great. I love hearing about all the cool stuff you do and just how much you dive into different tasks and continue to move your brand forward. It's been really inspirational.
Just make it fun. It's always, like I said, it's fun talking to you. It's great to hang out, and always look for the people like Jason and myself and others and Mike that are just passionate and have fun. We're not chasing dollars. We're not, trying to be somebody important to, hold stuff over people's heads. We're just trying to have fun and learn and teach people. So.
Well, thank you so much, Darrin. Thank you for everyone in the comments for asking questions and engaging. It's always great. And remember, to everyone listening, you can join us live every Thursday when we record these episodes. You can ask the guests questions, talk to the other bloggers in the comments, and even see our smiling faces. So join us Thursdays at makethatbacon.com/live or search for Makin Bacon on your favorite podcast platform. This has been Makin Bacon. We're all about helping you serve your fans, grow your income, and get the most out of your blog. Until next time, I'm Jason Logston. See you next Thursday, except for you Sous Viders, which I will see you in about an hour when we interview the beverage director from the Institute of Culinary Education, which should be an amazing interview I'm looking forward to. So check a lot of you out in an hour.
I'll see you in the comments.
We'll see if Mike cuts your dance from the video of this and posts it in there. You never know. See y'all.